I didn't exactly plan to spend the weekend trapped in a cabin with my boss, but if I've learned anything this year, it's that life rarely checks in before flipping the script on you. It started with a company offsite, one of those team bonding things management loves. Supposed to be a casual Friday to Sunday retreat in the mountains, with hot cocoa, ugly sweaters, and forced laughter. I hadn't even wanted to go, but my boss, Ryan, personally asked me to help organize it, which really meant he wanted me there. And that's how I ended up in his passenger seat, watching snow whip across the windshield as he drove us toward a cabin 3 hours outside of town. Now, to be clear, Ryan wasn't just my boss. He was the boss. 34, head of strategy, sharp as hell. The kind of guy who could walk into a room full of execs and have every single one eating out of his hand. He had this effortless charm, always smelled good, and dressed like his clothes were tailored, even when he was just in jeans. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't noticed. I noticed everything about him. The way he sipped his coffee, the way he loosened his tie during late meetings, the way he said my name slow, deliberate, like he was tasting it. But he was straight. He had to be. Right? The first red flag of the weekend came when we pulled into the cabin's driveway. Or tried to. The tires spun in the snow, the car lurched, and Ryan cursed under his breath. We managed to skid in sideways and park, but the sky had gone full whiteout. "We'll deal with that later," he said, grabbing the bags. "Let's just get inside." Inside was underwhelming. The heat worked, thankfully, but it was smaller than advertised. Way smaller. 1 bedroom, 1 bed. The rest of the crew, who were supposed to arrive in a separate car, were now delayed, probably stuck behind roadblocks from the storm. So it was just me and Ryan, and 1 queen bed. He looked at it, then at me. Cozy, I offered, trying to laugh it off. He raised an eyebrow. "We'll figure it out." We didn't figure it out. Hours passed. The snow kept coming. We played cards, made dinner, talked about everything except work. I learned he liked hiking, hated olives, and was once scouted for college baseball. He told me about his sister in Toronto and the dog he had as a kid. It felt weirdly easy. Comfortable. Maybe too comfortable. By midnight, it was clear the rest of the team wasn't making it. And neither of us wanted to sleep on the floor. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. "Look, we're both adults. Just take your side, I'll take mine. No big deal." I nodded, pretending it was no big deal. But I was hyper-aware of every inch between us. Under the covers, the bed felt warmer than it should have. I could feel the heat of him. Not touching. Not quite. But close. Too close. "You good?" he murmured, voice low in the dark. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. Long pause. Then, quietly, "You always this quiet when you're not in meetings?" I turned to face him, just slightly. He was on his back, 1 arm under his head, looking up at the ceiling. "You don't exactly invite small talk in the office," I replied. He let out a soft laugh. "Fair." Another silence. Then he shifted, turned toward me. "You know," he said, eyes on mine, "this is probably the most I've heard you talk since you started." "Maybe you don't give me enough room to talk," I said, before I could stop myself. His mouth quirked into a smirk. "Maybe you're not as quiet as I thought." The air between us changed. It wasn't just the snow outside anymore. It wasn't just the fire crackling in the corner. It was the bed. The way our knees brushed beneath the blanket. The way his voice dropped when he said, "You ever wonder what people would think if they saw us like this?" I froze. My throat went dry. "What do you mean?" Ryan didn't blink. Didn't break eye contact. 2 guys, 1 bed, snowed in. He tilted his head. "What do you think they'd say?" I swallowed. "I think it depends what happens next." His eyes darkened. His voice, softer now. "And what is going to happen next?" I didn't answer him right away. Not because I didn't want to. Because I couldn't. My brain short-circuited somewhere between 2 guys and what happens next. I stared at him, trying to decode the look in his eyes. Amused? Curious? Testing me? He didn't look away. Ryan just held my gaze like he knew exactly what he was doing, like he was waiting to see how far I'd go. And something about that made me bold. I don't know, I said quietly. What do you think would happen? His lips curled slightly. I asked you first. I laughed under my breath, unsure if I was being flirted with or interrogated. The air felt hot. Too heavy for such a cold night. Nothing, I said finally. Probably nothing. We're coworkers. You're my boss. We go back to the city and pretend this never happened. He nodded slowly, still watching me. And what if I didn't want to pretend? That stopped me. I don't understand, I said. Are you saying you do want something to happen? His face shifted just slightly. The confidence dimmed for a second, like even he wasn't sure if he'd gone too far. Then he exhaled and laid back on the pillow, staring at the ceiling again. I don't know what I'm saying, he muttered. Maybe it's just the snow, the quiet, the fact that I haven't touched anyone in months. That admission hit me harder than it should have. He wasn't trying to be seductive, he was being honest. Lonely even. I get it, I said, softer now. It's been a weird year. Ryan turned his head toward me. His expression had shifted. No longer teasing, no longer testing. Just tired, thoughtful. Do you? He asked. Get it? I nodded. More than you probably think. Something settled in the space between us. Not quite sexual, not quite romantic. Just human, vulnerable. Then he shifted again, rolled onto his side to face me fully. You ever sleep next to someone and feel like you can't relax until they breathe out first? I blinked. What? He smiled faintly, like you're both holding your breath, and someone has to let go first. I didn't say anything, so I exhaled. He followed a beat later. We laid there like that, quietly, our bodies inches apart but not touching. The storm raged outside, battering the windows, but inside that bed it felt like a strange kind of calm had taken hold. Like the world outside didn't matter. Eventually I closed my eyes, and somewhere in the early hours, I felt him shift again. Just slightly. His hand brushed against my arm under the blanket. Not accidental, but not aggressive either. A quiet question. I didn't pull away. He didn't move further. Just rested there, the tips of his fingers grazing my skin. I didn't sleep much that night. And when I opened my eyes the next morning, the snow was still falling, the room still dim. But Ryan was still there, still facing me, still watching me. I didn't say anything at first, neither did he. There was something strange about waking up already in the middle of a moment. No warm-up, no polite small talk, just eyes open, heart racing, and my boss staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Morning, he said eventually, voice low and rough from sleep. Hey, I replied, trying to sound more awake than I was. His hand was still half resting on my forearm under the blanket, warm against my skin. Not intentional, maybe, but not accidental either. I hadn't pulled away. That felt important. He didn't move. Did you sleep? He asked. A little. His eyes scanned my face. You were tense. You kept turning over. I gave a soft laugh. Yeah, well, kinda hard to relax when you're this close. Ryan smirked. You saying I make you nervous? I'm saying this whole situation is weird. He looked up at the ceiling and nodded like he agreed. But then he said something that made my chest tighten. It doesn't feel that weird to me. I didn't know what to do with that. Not right away. Because if it wasn't weird to him, then what the hell was it? Ryan sat up slowly, stretching his arms over his head. The blanket fell to his waist, revealing the bare skin of his back, broad shoulders. A trail of freckles down his spine. I looked away. Too late, he noticed. You always this quiet in the morning? He asked, glancing back over his shoulder. I'm trying not to say anything I'll regret, I said. That made him pause. Why would you regret anything? I sat up too, keeping the covers pulled to my chest like some kind of useless armor. Because I don't know what's going on. Because I'm not sure if this is a moment or just a glitch in your emotional firewall. He blinked. My what? Forget it. He didn't. Ryan turned to face me completely now, legs crossed on the mattress, expression unreadable. You think I'm playing with you? He said. I don't know, I replied. Are you? No. Then what is this? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I don't know either. I just know I didn't want you to sleep on the couch. And I didn't want to sleep alone. That's not exactly clarity. No, it's not. He rubbed his face with both hands. But I'm trying. That honesty disarmed me. Again. He wasn't being slick. He wasn't trying to manipulate me. He was confused. And for once, he was letting someone else see it. He looked up at me. Would it be so bad, he said, if this was something? My chest felt tight. No, I admitted. But it would be complicated. He nodded. Yeah, it would. We sat there, facing each other on opposite ends of the same bed, tangled in blankets and tension. Snow still falling outside. The world's still quiet, Ryan exhaled. Look, I'm not trying to mess with you, he said. I don't want to make you feel like this is some kind of game, I nodded. I appreciate that. He reached across the space between us, just enough to let his fingers brush mine. The touch was small, tentative, but it sparked something undeniable. I'm figuring it out too, he added. You're not the only one caught off guard. And then, almost shyly, but I liked waking up next to you. I didn't pull away. For a long second, I didn't know how to respond. I liked waking up next to you. It was simple. Too simple. It didn't sound like something my boss would say. It sounded like something a guy might say to someone he was seeing. To someone he liked. But he wasn't someone I was seeing. He was Ryan. The guy who signed off on my project reports. The guy who gave presentations with laser focus and folded his arms like a fortress when he was thinking hard. The guy who, until 48 hours ago, I was convinced barely saw me as anything more than a competent employee. I liked waking up next to you too, I said. And I meant it. We sat in that weird, tentative quiet for a moment. Not uncomfortable, just fragile. The kind of quiet where anything said next might tip the balance one way or the other. Do you want coffee? He asked finally, sliding out of bed and stretching again, like we hadn't just walked across a conversational tightrope. Yeah, I said, blinking at the sudden shift back to normal. He padded downstairs barefoot, still shirtless, and I had to physically force myself not to follow with my eyes. I grabbed a sweatshirt and threw it over my head before joining him a few minutes later, trying not to overthink everything. The kitchen smelled like coffee and pine. Outside the cabin, everything was still white and silent. Snowbanks growing against the windows. The storm clearly not finished with us. So he said as he handed me a mug, "What's your take on this?" He didn't define this, but I didn't need him to. I held the mug in both hands, feeling the heat seep into my fingers. I think it's dangerous. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Dangerous? Yeah. You're my boss. We're stuck in a romantic cabin in the middle of a blizzard. There's literally one bed. It sounds like the start of a bad HR training video. He laughed, but there was a flicker of tension behind his eyes. Fair, he said. But I wasn't planning on seducing anyone this weekend, if that helps. I tilted my head. But now? He paused. Now I'm thinking about it. I almost dropped my mug. He gave me a small, almost apologetic smile. I'm not good at this, at being honest about what I want. I usually keep things clean and easy and manageable. And I'm none of those things? He looked at me dead on. No. You're not. You make me notice things. I swallowed hard. Like what? He didn't flinch. Like how I've been looking for excuses to talk to you. How I waited for you to get coffee every morning just to walk by the kitchen. How I volunteered to drive up here instead of flying with the execs because I knew you were carpooling. I blinked. You did all that? He nodded. I didn't realize it until we were alone, until I saw you walking around in sweats, hair a mess, and still looking like someone I wanted to wake up next to. I tried to breathe, I really did, but this was not the Ryan I knew from the office. This was not the composed, calculated manager I worked under. This was someone else. Raw, realer, leaning over the edge of something uncertain. Okay, I said, voice low. Let's say I believe you. What now? He stepped closer. We take it slow, he said. We survive the weekend. We don't do anything reckless. But we stop pretending like something isn't happening. And Monday? He smiled, just a little. Monday's future Ryan's problem. Before I could reply, the power flickered again, then went out completely. We stood there in the sudden silence, staring at the dead coffee maker and the dim kitchen. Ryan exhaled. Guess we're really off the grid now. The power didn't come back on. Not after 5 minutes. Not after 10. We waited, checked the circuit box, tried restarting the generator. Nothing. Just the flickering fireplace and the white wall of snow outside. So, I said, pulling my blanket tighter around me. No heat, no lights, and no Wi-Fi. I'm beginning to see why they call this team bonding. Ryan grinned, holding a flashlight under his chin like he was telling ghost stories. You and me, roughing it. This is the dream. Your dream, maybe. He tossed me a protein bar from the pantry. It'll build character. We ended up back in the loft, wrapped in blankets, playing card games on the bed, like two kids stuck inside during a snow day. Something about the whole situation had shifted. The earlier tension, all that will he, won't he electricity, had softened into something warmer, something familiar, and still I couldn't stop noticing him. The way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. The way he tapped his fingers against his knee when he was thinking. The way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching. Eyes soft, a little curious, like he was still trying to figure me out. I've never done this, he said quietly at one point, setting down his cards. Lost 5 rounds of Go Fish in a row? He smirked. No, I've never felt this drawn to someone I work with. Someone unexpected. I swallowed. Same. He looked down at his hands for a moment, then back up at me. I've always been careful. Kept my personal life and work life in separate boxes. Neat. Clean. You strike me as a very neat guy, I said, half teasing, trying to cut the weight in the air. He didn't smile this time. I think that's why I can't stop thinking about you. Because you're the first thing that doesn't fit in either box. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said the only thing I could. I think I've been waiting to hear you say something like that since the first time you complimented my presentation and then made a joke about my coffee order 5 seconds later. He looked startled. Seriously? Seriously. You were the one part of that office I couldn't tune out. He shifted closer on the bed. Just a little. Then more. We weren't touching yet, but we were close enough that I could feel the heat off his body. Close enough that if I leaned forward even an inch, our foreheads would bump. Can I ask you something? He said, voice soft. Yeah. Do you want this? Not just now. I mean, if the snow melted and we were back in the real world, would you still want this? I looked at him. Really looked. At the guy who had taken off his manager mask somewhere between the power outage and the 5th round of Go Fish. At the man who had let me see the quiet parts. The uncertain parts. Yes, I said. And then his hand brushed mine. Tentative. Slow. Like he was still giving me a chance to pull away. I didn't. I turned my palm upward, lacing our fingers together. His grip was warm. Steady. We stayed like that, in the quiet, until he said almost sheepishly, just for the record, I wasn't lying about not snoring. Good, I said. Because if we're stuck here another night, I'm not giving up my side of the bed. He smiled and didn't let go of my hand. The snow didn't stop that night. If anything, it got worse. The wind howled against the windows, piling drifts higher against the door. At one point, Ryan went downstairs to check the front porch and came back looking half impressed, half annoyed. "We're not getting out of here tomorrow," he said, brushing snow from his jacket. "Cool," I said, from where I was bundled in 3 layers of blankets. "So we just live here now," he smiled. "Hope you like granola bars and melted ice. I've eaten worse during grad school. We cooked what we could on the old gas stovetop, lit more candles, and watched the fire like it was the only entertainment left. And in a weird way, it was kind of peaceful. Like the world outside had hit pause. There were no Slack messages, no meetings, just 2 guys, 1 bed, and nothing to do but talk. He opened up that night, more than I expected. Told me about his first job, his mom, his worst breakup. How he used to think he had everything figured out until he turned 30 and realized he barely knew himself. How he hadn't felt seen in a long time, not outside of work, not like this. I listened, not because I felt like I should, but because I wanted to, because this wasn't Ryan the boss, this was just Ryan, and the way he talked. Unguarded, hands occasionally brushing his face when he said something vulnerable, made my chest ache in a way I hadn't expected. "You're easy to talk to," he said at one point, eyes flickering over to me. "You just need to be snowed in more often." He laughed, low and warm. Later, in bed, it wasn't awkward. It could have been. Sharing a blanket, our knees bumping under the covers, knowing exactly what was buzzing between us now. But it wasn't awkward. It was quiet, comfortable, safe. "I keep thinking this is going to feel weird," he murmured in the dark. But it doesn't. I turned on my side to face him. He was close enough that I could see the outline of his face in the firelight, the faint shadow of stubble on his jaw, the curve of his lips. "Yeah," I whispered. "Me too." Then, in that charged quiet, he reached out and touched my face. Just lightly, his fingers brushing my cheek like he was still unsure he had permission. I didn't stop him. I didn't say anything. I leaned in. The kiss was slow, almost hesitant, like we both knew it could change everything, and didn't want to rush it. His hand moved to the back of my neck, steady and warm, and I felt him sigh into it, like he'd been holding that breath for weeks. When we finally pulled apart, neither of us said anything at first. We just stayed close, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. "I really didn't plan this," he whispered. "I know. But I don't regret it. Me either." He kissed me again, just once. Soft. Then we settled into the blankets, closer than before, his arm draped loosely across my waist. And for the first time all weekend, I didn't care about the storm. When I woke up, he was already watching me. Not in a creepy way, just there, eyes soft, head resting on one arm, face half lit by the early morning light slipping through the frost-covered windows. He looked calm, like he hadn't just crossed a line with someone who reported to him. Like kissing me hadn't completely restructured the way we'd see each other from now on. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hey." I croaked back, my voice still rough from sleep. A long pause. Then he reached out and brushed his thumb across my wrist, right where it was resting on the blanket. "You okay?" he asked. "I think so. You think?" "I mean, we just kissed. In a cabin. While snowed in. You're still my boss. It's kind of a lot." He nodded, eyes not leaving mine. "I know. I keep thinking about that too. And I'm still glad it happened." That shut me up for a second. Because he wasn't saying it lightly. There wasn't a grin or some throwaway charm. Just a man, messy-haired, honest-eyed, telling me he meant it. "I don't want to pretend it didn't happen," he added, "but I also don't want to make it harder for you. I'm not trying to put you in a weird position." "You're not," I said, a little faster than I meant to. It's actually kind of nice. His smile was slow, real. Yeah? Yeah. We spent the rest of the morning like that. Quiet, close, bodies relaxed in ways they hadn't been the past 2 days. The storm had eased up, but we still weren't going anywhere. The roads wouldn't be cleared until late afternoon at best. So we stayed in bed, talked about the office, our coworkers, the absurdity of everything. Ryan confessed he once accidentally sent a Slack DM meant for a friend to the entire marketing team. I told him I once ate a coworker's yogurt and blamed it on a non-existent intern. It was easy, easier than it had any right to be. Around noon, the snowplow finally rolled through. The way we both stood by the window and watched it felt symbolic, like the real world was inching its way back toward us, like the little time capsule we'd been sealed in was cracking open. "Guess we'll be able to head out soon," I said. "Yeah." I turned to look at him. "You okay?" He nodded slowly. "I just don't want this to disappear once we're back. I don't want to pretend this didn't happen." I hesitated. "You sure? Because it'd be easier. Cleaner. Easier doesn't mean better." I studied him. The way he looked at me now, clear-eyed, steady, wasn't the same as before. This wasn't curiosity. This was decision. "You want to figure this out?" I asked. "I do." "If you do," I reached for his hand, "then yeah, let's figure it out." He squeezed my fingers once, then let go. "Let's get packed," he said with a small smile, "before the snow changes its mind." The drive back was quiet, not uncomfortable, just that calm kind of silence that settles in when something big has happened, and neither of you wants to risk shattering the peace by overanalyzing it. Ryan's hand rested on the gear shift, fingers occasionally tapping. I caught him glancing at me a few times when he thought I wasn't looking. I pretended not to notice, mostly because I was still processing the fact that we'd kissed twice and slept wrapped around each other like it was the most natural thing in the world. The roads were clearer by the time we hit the main highway. The snow was already melting into slush, the storm receding like a dream. It was strange. Everything was going back to normal. Cars on the road, signal bars on our phones, but nothing felt normal anymore. We stopped for gas around the halfway mark. While Ryan filled the tank, I stood near the vending machine, pretending to debate between peanut M&Ms and trail mix. My brain was a static hum. He came up behind me, leaned slightly against the wall, and said, "You okay?" "Yeah. Just thinking." "About what?" I turned to face him. "About Monday. About how we go back to desks and schedules and Slack notifications and how all of this is supposed to fit into that." He nodded slowly, then surprised me by stepping a little closer. Not touching, but near enough to make it obvious we weren't just coworkers anymore. His voice was low. "Let me worry about the structure. You just keep showing up." I stared at him. "You're serious about this." "I am. But what if?" He held up a hand gently. "I get it. The job. The mess. The timing. Trust me, I've thought it all through. But I'd regret not trying more than I'd regret messing up." My throat felt tight. I'm not exactly the casual type. I'm not asking for casual. There was a beat of quiet, and then, right there in the gas station parking lot, Ryan leaned in and kissed me again. Quick, soft, but with purpose. No one saw, or if they did, I didn't care. When he pulled back, he looked relieved, like he'd been holding that in the whole drive. I smiled. "Guess I'll be rearranging my 5-year plan," he grinned. "Only if it includes more bed sharing during blizzards." We got back to the city that night. Monday came fast. The office felt the same lights, same hallway buzz, but everything was different between us. Quieter, charged, private. We didn't talk about it at work, but that Friday, he waited for me in the parking garage with a coffee and a crooked smile. "Want to go somewhere this weekend?" "Somewhere without snow?" He laughed. "Maybe, but I'm not making promises about the bed situation." And just like that, it was something. Not a fling. Not a glitch in a snowstorm. but something real, something unexpected, something I didn't see coming and couldn't stop thinking about.